Good morning, everyone. No, it's a bit early here, but Samuel and I are super excited to be with you all today and to be speaking a little bit about digital fundraising and people-powered movements. I understand that you all may have had a few options for breakout rooms today, so we really appreciate you choosing to be here with us, and it should make for a fun and interactive session. So just a quick housekeeping note that as we're going along with the presentation, please feel free to jot down your notes and questions and ask them in our Q&A section at the end. That way we'll be able to spend a lot of time talking through your questions. But yeah, my name is Dan Michaels. I use the he, him pronoun series, and I'm an associate on the Movement Issues and Charitable Organizations team at ActBlue. Essentially, we're the team that works with pretty much all entities on the platform, excluding for political campaigns. And I personally work mostly with immigrant and human services organizations on the platform. And I came to this work in movement building and digital fundraising initially, due to the fact that I have several loved ones belonging to the undocumented community. And, just sort of having that firsthand recognition of really how fundamentally broken our immigration and criminal justice systems are. And I am thrilled to be here working at ActBlue, as I definitely get to work with groups pretty much almost every day that are really fighting on the front lines for progressive change and holding our government accountable. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. Sam, did you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samuel Vilchez Santiago, and I am a manager here in the Movement Issue and Charitable Organizations team at ActBlue. Particularly, my team works with on the equal rights space, so anything related to gender justice, racial justice, LGBTQIA equality, disability rights. We support those type of organizations across the country. I also come to this work from an organizing background. Like Dan said, I also, like Dan himself, I have done a lot of work on the immigration movement across the country to make sure that undocumented immigrants and other immigrants in the United States have rights. I've also worked in several political campaigns at the state, local, and federal levels. And I've also organized around voting rights. So this is a very personal thing for me, supporting nonprofit organizations and supporting great community leaders and organizers like yourself. So thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to sharing a little bit about our knowledge in the next 45 minutes. And my pronouns are also he, his, him.
Thanks so much for that, Sam. So first, we thought we could maybe do a little icebreaker to kind of just get us going here. I know it's early, so kind of to get the gears grinding, to really get us in the mood for what we'll be speaking about today. So just a couple questions. So number one, what's your name? Number two, why are you here today? And three, what is your first or best experience asking for money? So let me repeat that again. What is your first or best experience asking for money? And this can definitely be, in your professional career or when you were younger, it doesn't really matter. And I'll definitely go ahead and give you a few moments if you want to think about it and reply in the chat. I'll just say, I know for me, the first time I ever asked for money was when I worked at the local Humane Society. We were at a fundraising event and my boss, I think, wanted to sort of curl my skills. She asked me to go around and basically talk to people and make cold solicitations. It was definitely pretty nerve-wracking, but luckily for me, my boss armed me with her very elderly Chihuahua, who had the most sympathetic little eyes you could ever ask for. So naturally, I think I reeled in about like $100 or $200 that day. But yeah, definitely wasn't working on my own charisma alone. Definitely had a lot of help there. But yeah, I'll give folks a few more moments.
On my end, it's actually really funny. I actually ran for the Florida State House last cycle in 2020. And I think the easiest fundraising experience for me was I posted out a tweet from my campaign and someone replied and they were like, can we have the donate link? And I sent them the donate link, and 5 minutes later, I come to see my ActBlue account, and he had donated $1,000 without even me asking. And that's the maximum amount of donation. So that was an incredible experience for me, but also just texting the link to my friends so they could donate $5, $10, $20. Overall, we had a lot of fun fundraising. And I know some people don't like the whole fundraising thing, but I think it's very useful, needed, and you can make it fun if you're with the right people.
For sure, we're all about making it fun here. And $1,000, that's not bad. Oh, I see some folks coming in through the chat. So Allison, I think selling Girl Scout cookies was my first experience asking for money. It's definitely very common and definitely a good way to get your foot in the door there. Gina Gillis, here to advance my skills as corporate and community engagement manager for an educational nonprofit here in Arizona. Allison ditto, Girl Scout cookies, yep. Christina, my first time asking for money was in elementary school for a Jump for the Heart jump rope campaign. Awesome. Best for me, asking for money to support Team Fox, the Michael J. Fox Foundation. That's awesome. Shannon, I'm here to learn more about different health initiatives, specifically around health equity. My first experience asking for a donation was selling wrapping paper for elementary school. That's awesome. Cool. Thanks so much, everyone, for participating. I appreciate it. So before we go any further here, I just wanted to make an acknowledgement of the geographic land that we're currently located. So for myself, I am located on the home and the traditional ancestral lands of the Cohotielcan people, now today called Bexar County in San Antonio, Texas. And Sam, where are you residing?
I am residing in Central Florida, particularly Orlando, and this is the ancestral home of the Seminole people.
Awesome. And yeah, I just wanted to say, if you're unsure and want to find out more about the lands that you currently reside on, I definitely recommend going to nativegov.org to find out more. It's definitely a really great resource. So yeah, let me go through the agenda for today quickly. So first, we will talk a bit more about ActBlue and kind of where we exist in the space, as well as talk about why we're crazy about this thing called small dollar donor power. Next, we'll talk about digital fundraising and, sort of exactly kind of like what are the essential tools needed to get started in building a digital program. We'll talk about how to build an online list. So generally speaking, who will you be directing your fundraising efforts towards? After, we'll spend some time workshopping fundraising emails and how to craft a compelling case for support to donors. That should be the fun interactive portion of the session. And then finally, we'll talk about ActBlue tools and features and kind of learn how to truly optimize your online fundraising program, and then answer any questions that you might have. And as far as goals go, so it's important to establish goals. So one, we're hoping that, we'll come to understand why small dollar donor donations are critical. Also how to build an online community, how to make an ask for donations, and then also how to leverage digital tools, including ActBlue, to build effective small dollar fundraising programs. So you may, at this point, be asking yourself, what is ActBlue? It's a great question. So ActBlue sort of exists in an interesting intersection of the public world. We're a nonprofit, but we're also a digital fundraising platform. And our mission and the reason for our existence is to help charitable organizations and progressive campaigns thrive. And at the center of our work is this simple core belief. Small dollar donors make sure our movements are accountable to the very people who are often most influenced by the work. We also believe small dollar donors are the people who will show up. This means they'll answer your calls, they'll show up to your protests, they'll sign your petitions. And if they love your mission and you really engage them properly enough, they'll make donations when you ask them to. And that's the secret sauce. That's what we're always trying to get to. And let me tell you, those small dollar donors and those small dollars, they add up. So let me give you some insight into our 2020 cycle for charitable organizations and campaigns. So in the 2020 cycle, on ActBlue, $5.1 billion in total was raised. The average contribution size was $38. 72% of donors were first-time givers, and 59% of donors gave more than once. So here's another way to digest that the growing power of this movement. ActBlue has been working with thousands of campaigns and organizations over the last 16 years, and we're definitely still seeing millions of new people come out and donating every single election cycle. And if you can tell by this graph, specifically in the red, which are nonprofit 501c3s, that really shows the continuing upwards trajectory of new accounts on ActBlue. So as you might be able to discern, this movement of small dollar donors, it's not going anywhere. It's only getting more and more popular each year as organizations really begin to see how effective and convenient it is to raise funds in this way. And then on the donor side, they're really starting to see how easy it is to make real consequential change with just a few bucks. So now that we've talked about the benefits of recruiting small dollar donors for your program, let's talk about the digital fundraising best practices that will really reel them in. But first, sort of what is digital fundraising? We can define it in this way. Digital fundraising helps you to build and run a flexible, inexpensive, empowering program that brings in money and dedicated supporters. Now that sounds pretty good, but what do you actually need to get started? What are the tools that you'll need to get going? So first, you'll need a CRM, which is the online database where you can store all of your donors' contact information, giving history, and all of their pertinent information. So if you're just getting started and you don't have a ton of resources quite yet, just know that this doesn't need to be anything fancy. You can just sort of have your donor data exist on an Excel or a Google Sheets spreadsheet. Next, you'll definitely need a fundraising platform where you'll actually go ahead and create fundraising forms that you'll be sending through email, social media, and perhaps other platforms. And forms are pretty much ActBlue's bread and butter, and we'll definitely get into forms later on more so. Another thing you'll need is mass mailer software. This is going to be the place typically where you can segment out your donors based on information you've stored in your CRM or spreadsheet. And these segments might be created for attributes like giving potential or interest to a specific issue. But if we're trying to get an example here, so let's say if you are running an environmental organization, let's say for sea mammals, you can create a distinct fundraising email for an audience that, maybe in the past signed up to learn more about manatees and their endangerment status, and, and another fundraising email for an audience that wants to protect the beluga whales. And through segmenting your donor base and your supporter base in this way, you've tailored messages for each group, which will demonstrate that you remain hyper-focused on the issues that they have told you that they care about. And for you, that definitely means increased engagement and more small dollar donors committed to your cause. And lastly, you'll need a website and a pretty robust social media presence in order to share your message with potential supporters, and then also keeping those current ones engaged. So let's talk about building your list online. So, if you're really new in the creation of your digital presence, you might need to crack out, your Rolodex, depending how old you are, or wherever you store your personal contacts. We definitely find that utilizing your LinkedIn contacts is great for this. Your website's also a great way to build your list. If you have a website that is, one, compelling, and two, shows that your organization is effective and an expert in whatever field you're in, it'll be a really big help to getting people signed up and wanting to hear more from you. Social media is also a really great way to build relationships in your list. If you're putting out new and engaging content on social media on a pretty regular basis, it'll definitely encourage people to learn more. And finally, virtual events, which I know is something that we've all really had to get better at in this past year. But virtual events are definitely a great way to create an intimate space with your supporters where you can really speak to them directly about your program and make that case for support. So as far as website best practices, so first you'll want to make it really easy for folks to sign up for your email list. Having it really be one of the first things that they see when they navigate to your website. And we found that, even having like a pop-up works really well for that. You'll also want to make sure that you're reserving a domain name for your website as soon as possible. Sometimes getting that domain name that you want turns out to be pretty competitive. You'll also want to make sure that your website has recognizable branding and is accessible for everyone. So making sure you're using big font, high contrast, and simple colors for best results. Also, as web traffic continues to trend towards mobile, you'll want to make sure that your website is mobile optimized for easy navigation and accessibility. So moving on to social media, you'll want to make sure your community, you'll want to make sure you're building your community by being an expert in your field or demonstrating how effective your program is. You'll also want to make sure you're calendaring out your social media posts in advance so that you're prepared for any relevant special events, holidays in your specific field, etc. But calendaring will also really help to make sure you're posting fairly regularly. Also note that you'll want to make sure that you're maintaining social media specific content and then also website specific content with the end goal of redirecting supporters to your website so that they can engage in, kind of more in-depth information and content, as well as having more opportunities for your supporters to engage or donate. So remember that getting supporters to your website is pretty crucial if you want them to take more substantial next steps in supporting your organization. So social media sometimes should really just be kind of getting your foot in the door for certain supporters and then, kind of working them up, trying to get them on your website for that more active engagement. And as far as online best practices, event best practices, make sure that you're collecting participants' emails. As I mentioned earlier, online events are a great way to create an intimate space for new and existing supporters and to really make that case for support. And after your supporters leave your online event, with all those great feelies, you did a great job, you really made your case for support. You'll really want to make sure you're capitalizing on your success by sending an email immediately like this. So, like, thank you for joining our event. Support from folks like you is the reason we can continue to build community during this time. Can you chip in $3? So just something light like that, definitely like a low level lift, a low level ask, just making sure that they're engaged and you're able to capitalize on your success. But yeah, so thanks so much for that. And next I'll be passing it over to Sam to talk more in depth about creating emails and really making that case for support.
So I'm going to be talking about particularly why email is still important and how you can leverage email and utilize it in your favor whenever you're creating a digital fundraising campaign. So as this says here, email is still number one because it's still the driver of the vast majority of contributions. It also allows you to do direct asks, it's inexpensive, and it's flexible. So again, email is very important. And here we are to teach you some of the tips that we have on how to best utilize email in your fundraising campaigns. So what should a fundraising email do? And I think this is a very important question because we always talk about email, but people never talk about how they actually use email. But basically emails, a very effective fundraising email should do three things. One, it should motivate people to action, whether it's fundraising in this case, so they can donate, or if it's volunteering, signing a petition, something, you want to make sure that you're capturing people's attention and then you're driving that attention toward action. Two, You want to make sure that your supporters feel like they're part of something bigger than yourselves. Everyone, all humans, it's human tendency to want to belong. And through a very effective email, you can make them part of your movement. And this is very important as you're building something bigger. And then three, it's very important to use inclusive and empowering language. And this means avoiding gender language, being simple and utilizing larger text for accessibility purposes. And then also, just like in your website, make it very easy to give and easy to sign up. So what should the email structure look like? The first thing, obviously, is subject line. You want to make sure that your subject line encourages your supporters to open the email and take action. Whenever someone is reading something, the easiest thing to do for them is to start reading it. So you want to make sure that they not only click on the subject line and open the email, but also stay reading it. And that's exactly what you need, a hook. And that's the second piece, which is basically something, a line or two, that will capture the attention of your supporters once they open that email. Third, you're going to need an explainer. You have to explain why. Why is the work that you're doing very important? Why does it matter right now? And why does it matter to the person reading the email? And finally, as I mentioned before, you need to motivate people to action. And in order to do that, you need an ask. So an ask provides way for supporters to get involved. And as I mentioned before, it could either be donate, volunteer, sign a petition, sign up for an email list, et cetera, but you always want to finish in your email with an ask. So here, it's an example of an effective fundraising email from the Sunrise Movement. The subject line was pushed to the limit. So once they read that, I'm like, what does this mean? Let me open it so I can continue reading. And this is what the email read, how the email read. Dear Samuel, with election day right around the corner, we're running out of time to reach out to people across the country and help them make their votes count this election season. Our Victory Squad has been making calls, sending texts, and mailing postcards every week, which means the digital tools we use for organizing are being pushed to their max. We need your help to sustain this momentum so we can keep pushing through to election day. Can you contribute weekly to fuel our effort in the next 4 weeks? Just $17 a week. Help us reach 1,000 potential voters. So in this case, if you can see, again, the subject line was pushed to the limit, and it was very, very effective in, making people want to keep reading and open the email. So because they didn't know what it was about. So once you click, then you stay reading. The first paragraph here is the hook. This is, you're telling people, what this is about. And clearly you want to make sure that your hook is relevant to the people who are reading it. So obviously in this case, election day was coming up. Everyone was talking about the election. So this is a very effective hook because it connects to the realities that people are living outside of the virtual world. So that's one. Two, you want to give an explainer. So here they explain the work that they've been doing, and they also explain why it's important for people to stay engaged, right? So that if they have done all of these digital organizing strategies, like sending texts, making calls, mailing postcards, and now that they're just 4 weeks before election, they want to make sure that people are staying engaged, and they need people to continue engaged so they can keep their momentum. And then finally, you get a very specific ask. Can you contribute weekly to fuel our efforts in the next 4 weeks? Just $17 a week help us reach 1,000 voters. So basically here, it's very specific because it even tells you like for how long, in this case, 4 weeks, for how much, $17 a week, and then the impact of that potential donation. So, and another topic we wanted to talk about is making the virtual ask, and it's very related to the way we write emails. And some of the things we'll be talking about is one-time versus recurring ask, the theory of change and how to utilize that in your emails, horizontal relationship versus vertical relationship, and then being as specific as possible. So I think there was another slide before that. Yeah, so the first thing is one-time ask versus recurring. We always get this question: when should I be asking for a one-time donation? When should I be asking for a recurring donation? And basically, I think the best practice is one-time asks are great for new supporters in big moments. So like a lot of organizations are preparing right now for giving season for the month of November and December, when we see an uptick in donations as part of the holiday season. So in that case, it will be a really good moment to do a one-time donation. And that will sound something like, can you give $10 right now? And then second, we have the recurring ask, which I think are great for building sustainable support and growth. And usually you want to a recurring ask for people who have already donated to your movement, to your organization, and are people who are coming back. So the second time someone wants to donate, then you can then go ahead and say, can you give $10 a month? But basically, for any effective fundraising program, you need both. You need one-time asks and one-time donations, mobilizing big moments of support. And then also you need recurring asks because it allows you to be more sustainable and know how much money is going to come in next month, the following month, just in recurring asks. Another important point is the theory of change. So utilizing the theory of change to be able to write effective digital communications, then basically the theory of change is the reason why taking an action can make a difference in something your supporters care about. So basically in this case, it will be like do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. And here do X will be donate or volunteer or sign a petition, etc. But you always want to utilize these three things. Do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. And basically you're telling them what to do. So you're driving the action. You're telling them what's going to happen if they do that. And then you're telling them your bigger goal with the particular donation if you want them to volunteer. And then, so yeah, so what will do X in this statement be? So the statement is, can you make a $20 donation today so we can buy food supplies to provide free lunches in after-school programs for low-income families? So in this case, where we utilize the theory of change formula, do X is make a $20 donation today. So that Y happens is so that we can buy food supplies. So again, do X, can you make a $20 donation today? So that Y happens is so we can buy food supplies. And then finally, to achieve Z, and in this case is to provide free lunches and after-school programs for low-income families. So in this case, the whole statement, can you make a $20 donation today so we can buy food supplies to provide free lunches and after-school programs for low-income families? It's a very direct message because it's telling you what to do, what's going to happen if you do it, and then what the bigger achievement or bigger goal of doing that is. So this follows the formula of the theory of change. Again, do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. And here's the example from the email we were talking about before from the Sunrise movement. If you see it here, can you contribute weekly to fuel our efforts in the 4 weeks? Just $17 a week helps us reach 1,000 potential voters. So here it's utilizing two of the techniques we've talked about: one, theory of change, and two, recurring ask. And here, what do you need to do? Contribute weekly, $17 a week, so that they can fuel their efforts for the next 4 weeks, and then to achieve reaching 1,000 potential voters. So again, do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. Another important point is this whole idea of horizontal versus vertical relationships. So in the movement, in terms of communication, we always want to be on the side of horizontal relationships. And horizontal relationships are those where both the organization or movement leader or candidate and the supporters have an equal stake in the problem and the solution. So it sounds something like, we can win this, but only if we work together. So again, I was talking about this whole idea of belonging earlier on, and horizontal relationships allowed us to foster those relationships of belonging among our supporters versus vertical relationships where, it seems that one member has greater standing in terms of power and authority or knowledge and wisdom. So it will be something like, I have the answers, you should chip in. So in this case, again, horizontal relationships are key. We want to make sure that people feel included, that they belong, and that they're not being talked to. Again, the whole point of we can do this together, and utilizing always we rather than I as pronouns. And then again, going back to the Sunrise Movement example, here's an example of a horizontal relationship. They say, we need your help to sustain this momentum so that we can keep pushing through election day. But throughout the whole thing is, we're running out of time to reach our voters. They always use, the we, and that is very, very powerful because it really drives up conversion rates, and it really drives up long-term engagement with different organizations. And yeah, so this is another example, and basically everything that I've said is included in this one paragraph. So this Friday is Earth Day, and the Green Earth Project volunteers are committed to advocating for environmental justice in your area. Can you donate $10 today so that we can provide our volunteers the tool they need to create a green space in their community? We cannot do this without you. So for starters, we're utilizing we're utilizing the horizontal relationship approach. We cannot do this without you, but we're also utilizing the theory of change formula. We're saying, can you donate $10 today? Very specific ask, do X, so that we can provide our volunteers the tools they need. And that's so that Y happens. And then to achieve Z, which is to create a green space in their community. So actually right now we're gonna do an activity where you get to kind of lead or get to write your own ask. So for the next 5 minutes or so, we're gonna ask you to go ahead and write a very short ask like the one I just talked about from Earth Day. And yeah, so make sure that you're doing it, you can do either a one-time or recurring ask, specific dollar amount, use the theory of change, do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. And then we're all in this together through horizontal relationship approach. So yeah, so why don't you go ahead and take 5 minutes, and then if you can please share them on the chat, and we'll be reading them out loud. You actually never know if like someone here will actually donate to your organization from this ask. So yeah, so this should be really fun. And once you have your statement ready, you can just go ahead and share it in the chat. So we got our first ask from Nicole Amling. We need your help to make the holidays warm and bright for our community. Will you contribute $10 so that we can collect 500 coats for local families? Really good. Yeah, it follows the do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. And it's very clear. And you tell them how much you want them to donate. And yeah, really good. So our first one from Nicole, thank you so much. We have another one from Christina Elena Blau. You can make a difference in the life of a veteran family today. Just $25 will provide a complete meal and necessities kit for a veteran in your community. So this one's really good too. It's utilizing the do X so that Y happens to achieve Z. Yeah, my only comment here will be around horizontal leadership. So make sure again that we're utilizing we. And now we're gonna move on to the next piece of our activity, but again, continue practicing your ask so that eventually you'll get to use it on emails. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Sam. So now that you've all spent some time understanding how to make the most out of messaging and developing an awesome ask, how are you actually going to get those funds? So let's talk about optimizing your digital fundraising experience with ActBlue tools and features. So as far as tools go, we'll talk about contribution forms and branding, embedded videos, mobile optimization, analytics, and of course the ActBlue Express Lane. So moving forward, let's talk about contribution forms. So ActBlue makes it really easy to create contribution forms that are super user-friendly for supporters. We have a universe of over 14 million ActBlue Express users, so supporters that have had the opportunity to save their contact and billing info so that they can donate in just 1 or 2 clicks. Also from the get-go, you have access to different types of forms that will really help to fit the full menu of digital fundraising needs. So that includes tandem forms, ticketing forms, peer-to-peer forms, and embed forms. ActBlue also makes it really easy to create branding that you can save and use across contribution forms on the platform so that you have really polished looking contribution forms in an instant. And this is particularly helpful when your organization has to react pretty quickly for a rapid response moment. And with social share, ActBlue makes it really easy for supporters to share that they have donated to your campaign or cause. And lastly, ActBlue makes it easy to be inclusive to different audiences. With just 1 click, you can make your contribution forms in Spanish language. So next, embed videos are a fantastic way to translate your case for support. You can either embed a video that you've recorded for your supporter audience, or you can also embed a live video if you're hosting a live online event. We've definitely seen a substantial raise in conversion rates when organizations have embedded videos on their forums. So from data from the last election cycle, we saw around 58% of donors give on mobile. ActBlue lets you easily translate the branding that you've created for desktop and make it as beautiful and accessible to give on mobile. Analytics makes it easy to track your data and visualize your fundraising in an easy to view graph. With analytics, you're able to make strategic decisions based off of when you're fundraising and when you're also not fundraising as much. And then also ActBlue Express Lane, which is something that's really exciting. So with ActBlue Express Lane, donors can give with a single click right from an email. So after you've made that compelling case for support over email, using a strong theory of change and horizontal relationships, ActBlue makes it really easy for donors signed up with Express Lane to donate to your organization in just one single click. And finally, if you're interested and you work with or run an IRS approved organization now or in the future, we'd be more than happy to work with you and anyone in this awesome community of professionals. We'll definitely go ahead and include our contact info in the end in case you wanted to ask us any more questions in depth. And to wrap it up, I'll go ahead and pass it to Sam.
Yeah, so now I'm just gonna be giving you kind of like a summary of everything we've talked about and the most important points that you should take away from this conversation. First, small dollar donors build people power movement. Just in 2020, $5.1 billion were raised through ActBlue for different organizations, for different candidates. So small dollar donors are important, and small dollar donations should be a key component of your digital fundraising programs. 2, digital fundraising tools make it safe and simple for your supporters to get involved in your campaign. So make sure you're utilizing as many digital fundraising tools like ActBlue to leverage that and leverage them to get more donations. 3, fundraising emails are one of the best ways to organize online and bring in sustainable, reliable income. So don't forget, email is very important. 4, ActBlue is here to help with your account and digital fundraising strategy. So anything you need, we're here to support you. Here are some of our resources. You can visit our blog where we have more information about the giving season that's coming up and more information about our tools, and that's blog.actblue.com. You can also sign up for our email list, and you can contact us directly at dmacos@actblue.com or Vilchez Santiago at actblue.com. And now we'll go ahead and take some questions. So we have a comment here in regards to the horizontal relationship statement, the you versus we. So the comment had been around because of your donation, a veteran will be able to eat tonight. So a way that we can paraphrase that and do it a little bit different could be like, we need your help. If you donate today, we can make sure that our veteran will not go hungry tonight. So again, you don't necessarily have to use the we pronoun everywhere, but you should use it at different parts of your statement. Another question that we have here, when considering a CRM, how many staff usually have access to that platform to make notes on contacts, partnerships, and donors? Is it all fundraising staff, leadership, or just a small number of staff to manage the data? I think it depends on how big your organization is. I would say that if it's a smaller organization, you want to make sure that it's at least 2 or 3 people. But obviously, if it's a big organization, you might be dealing with more contacts. So you're going to need as many people as possible.
With that, I'll say also that it's interesting because sometimes when you have a CRM for, you may only have a certain number of like accounts that you can offer your staff. So that might limit you initially, but ideally, I think it's great to have as much staff on as possible, not just fundraising staff, but also, perhaps people, if you're working in like a services organization, perhaps people working at your front desk. these are people that are actually interacting with donors, that might drop by and give $5 or $10. So ideally, it's really important that, everyone can have access to that software. But in reality, it is difficult from time to time to get that access.
And then we'll take a final question in terms of how do you convert social media followers to donors, I think, or acquire new donors? I think the main thing that we've seen organizations do is build their email list. So they utilize social media to do petitions. And then from the petition piece, then they can talk to them and try to get more donations. But we are running out of time. And this is, if you have any questions, any other questions, you can reach us at our emails. But again, thank you so much for being here today. We had a great time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, everyone.